Hello and welcome back, Realty Pros, to another Realty Talk. Our topic of for today is writing a winning offer. So I am so excited about everyone who has joined us on the line. I am excited that you have the opportunity to be a part of this training and excited about the trainer. If you guys were not here last week, you guys really missed it. So you need to go and listen to or look at those trainings from last week. So our trainer today is Mr. Curtis Price. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much again for being available to us.
Of course, thanks for having me. As always, I love interacting with my Porterhouse family. Just a full disclosure, I am kind of in the mix of a cold. So if I start coughing, don't mind me. Okay, I'm actually feeling a lot better, but I just wanted to put that out there in case I do start coughing. You're like, oh my gosh. So today, I also hope you don't hear. I have my chickens, I have baby chicks, and they're really noisy today. So they're in the house. I have to wait until they get probably about 3-4 more weeks before I can put them out back. So if you hear a little squeaking in the back, that's my baby hens. So today what we're going to do is really going to be looking at writing the offer itself. So part of the past few trainings that we've been doing, it's kind of been leading up to that point. So getting our buyer kind of from a lead to an actual client, going around shopping for properties, and now we found the home and we need to write the offer, right? So with that being said, I want to really put it out there too, that if you guys don't actively practice opening up Brokerman and just get in and tinker around, you're never going to really learn how to write the offer. Okay. You have to get active in just trying it out, practicing, playing around with it. And so part of this training is kind of the one part. In the evening, what I want you guys to actually do is to write an offer, go in, because it's one thing to sit on a Zoom or any type of a training and watch something happen than it is for you to now actively be at your laptop. There is adrenaline, there's things going on because now it's game time. Your buyer wants to buy this property, and basically it's up to you. You have to write a winning offer and get it submitted as quickly as you can. So that pressure, until you repeatedly do offers over and over and over again, you're not going to become proficient at it. Even for myself, as I kind of like go through and show you guys some things, I might mess up. It's just a matter of like the softwares we have. Until you're actually clicking around, tinkering around in the software, you just won't really learn it. That's one of the reasons why I don't really like Facebook, because it's exploded and grown so much from when Facebook first started. For me, it was just a lot easier to kind of get in or post something. Now it's like it's this whole world of buttons and things you can do. But if I don't actively get in there and tinker around with it, I would never figure it out. Same thing with Brokerman and actually actively now writing your offer. So one of the things I'm going to do is share my screen, and I believe that you guys will see the tabs that I have open. Okay. So if you guys see, what I did is up top here. So I'm very particular with, I want as much information, data, stuff that I'm going to need kind of at the ready and at my fingertips before I even start writing the offer. Okay. So one of those things is going to be, I'm going to pull up Brokerman, and I'm going to actually pull up the property that we are interested in writing the offer on. So few things happen here is well, we get great information about the property, but really right up here is going to be your disclosures. Okay. You're going to have that and put that in your offer. So your disclosures are going to be there. And then as you scroll down, I mean, some of this stuff, you kind of need, and some of it you really won't, but you will need at the bottom here, the listing office. You're going to need the information for the listing office and the offer that you're going to actually write. So again, this is a piece of information that I am going to need not as soon as I start writing my offer, but it's going to be included. I am going to need to know that the listing agent is Larry Doyle, the license number, all of this stuff here will go into the actual offer. So I like to have that pulled up, kind of locked and loaded, ready to go, as well as very important piece are going to be the documents or the disclosures. So when you click on that in Bright, it kind of just opens up where you can download them. I've already downloaded them for the training. The floor plan, I don't need it for the actual offer itself, but that listing agent, uploaded the floor plan for documents so the buyer could have. But the main thing is going to be the disclosures. Another thing that I like to do is I like to go into brokerment. So I have my actual sheet about the property that we are going to write the offer on. I'll go into brokerment, and underneath the working with buyers tab, when you click on that, the drop down comes up, and then we even have examples of offers to write that have been written. So we have a sample buyer agency documents where at this point, this has already been filled out because you are their realtor, right? We have a sample purchase offer, and then we even have a sample ratified contract. Okay. For this, I will go to the sample purchase offer. I'm going to actually open this document up. And I like to have this as somewhat of a guide for me as I'm going through and writing the actual offer. So it'll load up. This is one of the more powerful pieces of the offer in my mind is the offer synopsis. This is the first page. Any listing agent is going to want to know what's the deal, what's the money, what's the real nitty gritty with this offer. So by putting that all out, very spelled out, very nicely organized, the date, the buyer's name, the seller's name, the purchase price, the financing type. That's one thing that you also have to be a little mindful of when you're using, the template example. It could be conventional loan that you're working with. It could be a VA loan. It could be a cash buyer. So certain things will change, but the overall flow skeleton of the offer is going to be the same. So we have the EMD amount, the pre-approval or the proof of funds, the seller concession if we're asking for any, which is something that you would have discussed, with your buyer, seeing that 3% at one point was kind of standard. Over COVID, you weren't asking for anything. And so now you might be able to get away and actually get some seller concessions from the seller. Transfer and recordation. Typically, we always want to do a 50-50 split. Very important through the document that this is spelled out correctly. Any contingencies, which financing, sometimes I'll put financing and inspection, the settlement date, the lender, the title company. But basically, I like to pull this up so I have something that I can kind of go off of in case I get stuck or I'm not really sure what I'm doing or I get lost. It's just nice to have a template to go off of. We always didn't have brokerment, So back in the earlier days, I would just personally pull up a old offer that I had submitted, and I would just kind of have it pulled up, open, ready to go, just as a reference point for me, right? So now we are in Brokerment. So this is going to be the actual place that we are going to write the offer for the property, 201 10th Street, or 207th, I'm sorry, 10th Street. I already put that in. I have the seller's names, the buyer's names written down. So I always will like to have somewhat of a little notes. So I will have like the seller's name written out, the address again written out, the purchase price that we're going to offer written out, just as a side note, just in case I need it and I don't have to click around even more. Okay. So when you created your original offer, or not, I'm sorry, backtrack that. When you created your agency documents, okay, you can do all of that within this one field. So I just kind of bypassed all of that. But if you look here, um, sign agency docs and activate the MLS auto search. This is what you would actually use um, before your buyer consultation. So you would fill all of this out, your understanding whom, basically making you their realtor. Once that would have been completed and they signed off, the use forms, this wouldn't be lit because are active because you would have uploaded that form that would have been in there. One of the first thing is to add the contact information for all parties. So if you look on the left side here, users and contacts, when you click on this, a little window will pop up. I'm in here as the buyer agent, but I also added John Doe, who is the buyer, by clicking on the action button. You can add user, contacts. So you do want to obviously put the buyer that is involved in the transaction. The main thing that you need from the buyer is going to be their name and their email so that you can send them the document. This, though, would kind of already have been filled out, but because I've just skipped over for the training, I didn't have it filled out. The other thing that is really cool with Brokerment is your checklist. So when you actually add Maryland buying, all this opens up, all this like becomes available to you. I put the contract date um, of acceptance today, right? This can be changed. So it's not like February 29th is locked and, chiseled in stone. This can be adjusted. But if you notice, February 29th, March 1st, et cetera, et cetera. So the contract date is February 29th and the closing date is March 29th. Okay. So it actually has a entire timeline ready for you, spelt out for you. So once you do write the winning offer and your winning offer is accepted and ratified, the system really kind of like all you have to do is then just log into Brokerment and see where the transactions are, like see the stages of the transaction. So, as we haven't been ratified yet, once our offer is accepted and ratified, we would just upload it here. It will be in the system. We've already signed the agency docs, which as just I don't know why the signed agency docs wouldn't be up top, just a caveat. But once we are ratified, we also, if we haven't collected it prior to, we want to get our $790 admin fee. So we would just check that off as well. And once we're ratified, we would then need the formal EMD check, the picture for the bank proof deposit at Porterhouse International Realty Group that we have the actual EMD. So you would get that. You would contact Shay. He would actually then send you the image or what you would need, and you would just click here, upload it into your file. And of course, as soon as we're ratified, we want to start that the home inspection process, right? So once the home inspection has been completed, you would then upload the home inspection here, and then you just kind of like go along. Brokerment does a really, really good job with organizing the entire transaction. So right now we're going to really look at writing the great offer. We want to use the forms that are provided. Basically proceed to my white label. It's going to generate. And so now I need to find those 600. It's at the bottom.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
Okay. So basically, I think what happens is that Brokerment has to like kind of cross-reference that you have your I don't know what license, but basically you're a legit realtor. So you can access these forms. So you just kind of go back into the file, open it back up, use the forms again. And now we're kind of getting ready to rock and roll. So the forms and documents that are going to be used are all spelt out for you. So the offer synopsis, the understanding whom, consent for dual agency, the residential contract of sale, the FHA financing addendum, which may have to be changed out for a conventional financing addendum, a VA financing addendum, your NAR document, your seller contribution addendum, velocity title information, as we do want to use velocity for all of our buyers. Basically, marketing service agreement, lead paint, affiliated business disclosure. Please accept our offer, right? The nice thing with this is that if you hover over the little, I think they call them hamburgers when you see these lines, I can click that, hold it, and I can drag it around. So if I want velocity title, company information higher, that's what I would do. I click it, or if I want it to be down here, I'd lower it. So you can actually move these things around. If you don't need a certain document, you can click the X and actually delete it. If you need to add a document, so documents that will have to be added in here, and I don't have an example of a lender letter, but you would add your lender letter. You would add the picture that your buyer would take of the EMD check for the purchase price. So in this example, we're going to be writing an offer on a property for $600,000. 1% of that is going to be $6,000. So we would need a check showing that $6,000. And then one of the more important, well, they're all important, but documents that we're going to need, we're going to add more forms. Oh, no, wait. Cancel that. Attach a document. I think that's what I need to do. And I have trading disclosures. The disclosures. So these are the disclosures that were in Bright that I downloaded earlier. So I have the training. I just call them training disclosures, but I would typically name them 207 10th Street disclosures. But I don't want the disclosures to be all the way at the bottom. I'm very particular with how my offer is going to look. I want it to be very clean and nicely organized, even though the training disclosures that I looked through them, they weren't as organized as I would prefer them to be, but that's on the listing agent. It's all good as long as we get the property. So I'm going to move the training disclosures kind of up. I kind of will put the maybe velocity training disclosures, then lead paint. It really doesn't matter where you put them as long as they're in there. I just don't like them to be after please accept our offer, because to me, that concludes the show or the document, right? So that's kind of the same thing with the bank statement. Well, not the bank statement. Your picture, lender letter. I typically will have that right underneath the offer synopsis, right? Because I want them to see the money right away. So here's the offer synopsis. This is what we got going on here. Next, next image, within the file, within the document you're going to see is the lender letter. So we are approved for the money. We're good for the money. The next thing you're going to see is the picture of the check itself. And then you'll see the understanding whom, consent, residential contract of sale. So I just always like to have the money right away up front. But again, you can move these things around however it suits you. And then at the bottom here, this is where you can add more forms, attach a document. So depending on, the property itself, when you go to add forms, sometimes you need specific documents, right? So when you click that button, brokerage forms.
Curtis, can you add the property inspection addendum?
Yep. Well, you wouldn't have to add the prop. Well, yeah, you would add the property inspection addendum, like to the document. Or are you
Yes, were
talking?
you just gonna pull, you were gonna pull one to just add?
Yeah.
I was just asking you if you were gonna pull one to add, could you add that one?
Let me see if I can. Contract addendum. And see, this here is a prime example, everybody. Well, if you don't go in here and tinker around, property inspection addendum. Hey, I found it. So you would click here, property inspection addendum. This kind of previews it. And now I selected it, I added it. So now the property inspection addendum has been put in the document. So I would not want the property inspection addendum to just be all the way at the bottom. So I would move it up wherever you kind of would like it to be. But that's how you would actually add then another document to the offer itself. So once you, and this isn't locked or set in stone either, guys, like, you can, as you're going through the offer, it's not like you have to do all of this in the beginning or you can't add it, as you go through it. Because sometimes you just miss something, you just don't see something or like, oh, I need that. You can always go back in here and add that. So we're going to basically click next. So the signers and other parties, okay, if I know that the seller isn't going to just sign through my document, I will send this offer in on their agent is going to actually create their document to put their fields for them to sign and send it back. So for me, I'll just delete these fields. So the listing agent as well. I just want who I'm dealing with in this particular file or in this particular offer. There's only one. I think I called him John Doe. Yep, John Doe. And agent one, well, it's just John Doe and me. Okay. So I'll kind of go through, I'll delete all that stuff. If we need to add somebody else, we can select another person, we can add another person into it. One of the reasons why I'll do that is because when we, if it's not this step, it might be the next step. When when Brokerman like makes the document, right? So now we're prepping it. We're telling Brokerman what we want. We want to have John Doe as the buyer, Curtis Price as the agent, the address. We're telling the system, this is what we need in the document. If we have the sellers still listed in there as signers, when it generates the entire offer, it will still generate, it won't, excuse me, it won't have the names because I didn't, even though I may not have put the names of, in this instance, Jessica Ziegler and Anthony Poltz, who are the sellers, even though I didn't put their names in, it will still create the fields for the sellers to sign and or initial. And I'm saying that because you don't need them to sign or initial anything. And what it can do is it can kind of confuse, because essentially what you would do is delete that anyway, so as you're going through. So for me, it just saves a step, like a major step of deleting in the document itself, right? So the main thing is John Doe. That's the guy. He wants to buy the house. I got his information in here. So now it's preparing your documents. So this opens up the actual offer itself that we will then essentially do a lot of some typing and mainly clicking and copying and pasting. But it's the greeting letter, my name. So you see how it automatically generates the address, which is so cool. 207 10th Street, Lower Maryland, the date, John Doe, the seller. Now here I would actually then type in Jessica L. Ziegler and Anthony S. Holtz. I'm always going to be whatever the listing documents have. If it's Jessica L. Ziegler and Anthony S. Poltz, that's what I'm putting in. I'm not going to put Jessica Ziegler and leave out the L. Literally, whatever that listing document is what I'm going to mirror. I'm going to mirror it to the T. So clearly the font is a little too big. So we can adjust it, right? Oh. But I want it even a little smaller. Let's see what 16. There you go. A little neater. I'm all about the neat. And so then you would fill this out. Pretty cut and paste, pretty simple, and of course, I would have this right here, like, to mirror, okay? And what I typically will do is as I'm going through the document, I want to have my phone number, I'm just filling this out. To me, this kind of, by getting this page all set, mentally, I'm kind of in the zone now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go through and now I'm really writing this offer. One thing that I will say is that what I like to do is I think about it from the standpoint of like low hanging fruit. What are the things that I can kind of just start going through this offer and putting in that I know like 1,000% this has to be there. This has to be there. Part of that, right? Part of that is when I had the document, a few steps back where I could move the fields around, that's when I'm really creating the offer. I'm creating the bones of the offer. So if I have that really set, kind of the skeleton of it is good. I have everything in here I need. So I'll really spend time. I'll take my time and make sure that on that particular part of Brokerment that I've got everything in there that I need. You know what I mean? I don't want to just rush through just so I can start getting in here and tinkering around and trying to write the offer. I want to know I need these things in place. It's even organized the way that I want to organize it. And now once I open this up, I can kind of get busy and start, writing out the offer. So as you go down, clearly we are working with the buyer and me. So, and you see how it already generated the signature for my buyer. And I'm saying that because, but it doesn't really apply here. We don't need anything here. So as we're going through, I'll even sometimes just scroll through the entire document just to make sure that I have everything in there that I need. And then as we get to the actual residential contract of sale. In this, though, you would have seen up here in my perfect world, in between these two documents would have been the lender letter and then the EMD check, right? So that's where those would have been. So if you're the listing agent, first thing you see is the actual synopsis, and then you see the lender letter, and the EMD check. It's all about that money. So I want them to know we got the money. Money's here. I want to find an area that so date of the offer would be, it's today. The seller. And then I would, Jessica L. Ziegler and Anthony S. Holtz. So we have the $600,000 purchase price. We would have the so actually real quick. So as we're looking at all this stuff, some of it can be a little overwhelming because it's like, oh my gosh. So, it's a $600,000 purchase. So what I like to do is go right over here and follow and have this kind of in step with where I'm at. So the example had the lender letter. It had the EMD. So this even had, what was it? A nice, lovely letter from the buyer to the seller. Everybody loves those. And now you see the understanding whom, and it gets into the actual contract. Your consent for dual agency. And sometimes the computer, it is just slow. It is what it is. And I believe this is going to be, yep. So now we're at the actual residential contract of sale. Boom. So we are pretty much where we're at, right, in our actual offer itself. Okay. So we can use this as somewhat of a guide to kind of keep us on track. The main thing here, and this is all, we will have the EMD amount, which will be a check. It'll be held in escrow by Porterhouse International Realty Group. I'm not going to go too much into actually like filling all this stuff out. But you're starting to get kind of the gist of writing the offer. Any disclosures, these are all going to be somewhat unique to the property itself. So actually, where's that at? Because I want to show the more when it gets into. So this isn't the financing addendum, but it talks about the financing. Whatever that buyer is going to be, conventional, FHA. And then if you need to unclick it, change it, it holds it. Anytime you're going to be really using text, if you, this is all this stuff up here is if you needed to add something in. So it will create a text field for you. And then in here, hello, everyone. The thing though is once you click out of that, if you click again, it still has like the text box selected. So it's very important that if you added the text box you needed, unselect this. And then I will delete this because I don't need that there. I would delete this because I don't need that there either. But if you, whatever you select up here, it will kind of keep it highlighted. So if I need to do a strike through, right. Well, that's because, but now the strike through thingy is, oh no, that turns off. Okay, look at that. Learn something new every day. How do I get that off? I don't know how I delete the strike through. Well, that's not good. I would just make it small. So I would figure that out. And I guess that's the whole point of to like tinkering around, guys. It's all good. Let's see if I can delete this. All right. All right. So you're really just moving through. If your buyer is going to have the inspection, the addenda is attached. It's clearly not declined. You select on this and delete it. This is kind of what, and I guess we have to go a little deeper into the offer where it will generate. Yes, it's going to generate any field where there needs to be an initial, and it will do that as well for the seller. So if we would have kept the seller, I don't want to say thingy, but the seller being able to sign or initial, it would be there as well. If you had two people, then there would be two, there'd be basically buyer one, buyer two. If for any reason you needed a third buyer. So you would just add that, kind of click it, move it. You can make the boxes big or small. And then if you like the example of the, and then you can assign it. So you click here, that's a drop down, buyer one, or if the agent needed to sign it, for whatever reason. But see, this one does that. So if you click and then click again, maybe it's just for like text and signatures, it'll create another box. So you want to make sure that once you're finished with whatever initial field you did, because you can see how my little cursor is, it looks like a scope. I have to turn it off. So now I can click around and nothing will happen. So to go back up quick where the that elusive strike through. So this is typically anytime you do have a strike through. So if I needed to strike through this right here, I would then also need to put an initial for my buyer. And then when I send this over, that's where it'll prompt the buyer to initial there. The seller would then also, they would need to agree to this strike through and send their document back with the appropriate initials next to any changes, any strike throughs on the document. So that's where we were at. And then again, I'm always big. I'll just kind of like keep mirroring myself, go down wherever I'm at. And the documents have changed a smidge, but the overall, I think I'm too far down now. The overall meat and potatoes of it is pretty much the same. Again, I'm using the example as just to kind of keep me on track. And literally, I will go through and any changes that I know, anything that I know is like off the top of my head, kind of like when we were in school. Granted, I never really did this. I probably should have. You go through your exam, you kind of just go through the exam, you answer all the questions first, that kind of the easy peasy, blast through it. And then you go back through and you clean it up some more. And then you go back through it and you clean it up some more, etc. Right. If they're a first time home buyer, you click this. And then one of the most important, is as we go back and forth with the document, this will be the actual date of ratification when it was accepted. This can be kind of any date in a way. I mean, it would have to be the 29th, or it could be the 1st, or it could be the 2nd, whatever, just the way offers might come in. The listing side, they might be presenting offers, etc. But just say we submitted it and we know that it was accepted. This you want to go in, and then it becomes like a ratified contract. So this date of acceptance is extremely important. That is what ratifies your contract. So this section here is also a big reason why I'll have the listing pulled up in bright. Because you go to the bottom here, and now all this stuff is what needs to go here. Seller's name, put the seller's name in, the name of the brokerage company. Really, it's a lot of copy and pasting. So, kind of highlight, copy, go back over, paste, and just kind of, you would just go through, fill all this stuff out. these folks are acting as a listing broker. And then here it does have some of our, because I'm in the brokerment system, but the broker record will be Jasmine Porter, her license number. It's in brokerment, and then your license number, and you're working as the buyer agent. So you just copy and pasting the financing addendum. This is all going to be somewhat contingent, and a lot of your information will come from the letter itself. That will help you kind of fill this stuff out. But again, what I like to do, especially like any portion, I'm just kind of moving through just to kind of get through. So just trying to show you guys how, I guess to essentially write the offer, you know what I mean? Because all these things, every piece of the document is important. So I don't want you to think I'm just like blasting through it or going through it. But I will have this open to mirror really where I'm at. So I'm trying to find the financing. Because I don't know where that's at. It might be here. Yep. Okay, so we have the financing. It is an FHA loan, so it goes along. I think I said we were FHA, but it mirrors that. Obviously, the rates and everything. Interest rates are 3.25. That's that's for sure. So this probably was a COVID example. But you're going through making sure that everything is somewhat in alignment with your offer. And the mortgage insurance premium, these things will be on the actual lender letter, but I'll just say $5,550. And at any time, you can double click, it opens it back up. $6,550, to make any changes. You don't have to worry about like really screwing anything up per se. What I do like to do though is as I'm in it, I want to finish the offer, so this isn't anything that I would like, kind of start working on and then be like, all right, let me go do this. Like, no, I'm like dialed in. I need to get this offer written. I need to get it signed off by my buyer. And I'm not done yet. I need to get it over to the listing agent. So I'm very locked in to time. Back in when I used to have my my gym training facility, we had a big stop clock, and I would actually go that I might take a break in that instance, for one, because it took me so long, because I was so new as an agent to write the offer itself, where I might have to stop and then coach a class, and then I'd have another break. But I would actually turn the clock on and time myself and put myself under kind of like a time duress to see, how I can kind of push through. And even if there were questions or things I wasn't really sure about, I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't let that like truly trip me up. I'm just going to keep kind of moving through. All the easy stuff is the date. It's today. The seller is Jessica L. Ziegler and Anthony S. Pulse. I know that for sure. Make sure the address is right. Seller contribution. I'm not sure if we're going to actually, was it 1%? Maybe, you know what? I think it was 1%. I'll put that in. It was 1%. and I'll just keep kind of going through property inspection addendum. Were we going to get it inspected? We don't need all of this. There was no chimney, so let's delete this. Because what can happen too is if you send the document over, like if I just sent this over to the buyer, this will all be prompted, right? So the buyer is going to initial all of this. You know what I mean? Like, even though if, let's put it back, initial your chimney inspection, even though there was no chimney, if this is here, it's going to prompt him or her to actually initial it. And they will, because they're just kind of going through initialing. So this is all part two of like additional inspections. I like to always say any and all. Like, I don't know, but if we need it inspected, we'll get it inspected. Excuse me. But again, I'm really going to go through and make sure that all the things that I know for sure. So there's no buyer signature here. What was that? And I always like to, I don't know. I just like to make it bigger. With brokerment to the warranty, the warranty. Brokerment also date and time stamps all the signatures, but it was missing here. And see, I clicked again and it put another field there. I did it by accident, just kind of because this was still selected. The signature thing was still selected, but no worries. Just click on it, delete it, click on it, delete it, and moving through. I think this is for velocity. And you would put the date. So up here, there's no date generated, date. And it will mirror kind of what you did the last time. That's why it's so big. So you just kind of click and drag just to make it a little smaller. Put your buyers. You put the sellers as well. See that? I don't need that. Okay. And it's kind of like, I need to add the buyer signature here. The phone number. You could put your phone number and the date. And now we're in their disclosures. So we can see their signatures. But now we're in the seller's disclosures. So it's looking like they're disclaiming. And then my purchaser signature, date, and now I'm going back through. I'd have to add the buyer. So all of these, like adding the buyer name, again, that's kind of what I'm referring to as like the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff. Just to show to the signature, we would do, even though it date stamps it, sometimes, I mean, it's not like it will hurt if you put another date field here as well, you know, but it will date stamp it, kind of how theirs is. If you notice, it's the signature and the date. And then to add the agent, same thing, click signature. It's going to automatically kind of default to the buyer, but then we would want to click and then add the agent. Unselect so it doesn't keep doing signatures. And, so not getting too caught up in the full documents himself. The addendum document, that's what they generated. But the sale date, what we're after, you know what? I know that for sure. It's today. So I can fill this out. the buyer. I can put John Doe, I can do the low hanging fruit, kind of go through. This was actually something when I saw utility usage disclosure, which I even have a question about. So if I don't know, I would reach out to our amazing broker, or our amazing broker's husband, be like, "What's this?" I don't know if it possibly has solar, but I think it would have a solar disclosure. But I just never seen really the this, total usage, electric kilowatts. It just feels like something solary. But I know we're kind of getting close to time. But really, this is essentially the offer. This is how to write really your offer. If I'm going to get out of here, I can't stress this one enough. Save and close. I have forgot to forgot to save. I don't know how many times, just randomly, or and yeah, had to fill everything out again. In hindsight, what it does is makes you a lot better with writing offers, because you got to write it again. And I did have one of my earlier clients I was working with. I think I wrote, if not 30 offers, close to 30 offers for this one lady. And I knew at the time too, it was like, because the good thing was she wanted to write offers, right? She wanted to submit an offer. She was trying to find a house. And it just got me better at writing offers. So I really use that too as like a training for me in and of itself. If you do need to, of course, go back in because it's not finished, when you go back out to the edit e-sign, it kind of takes you through, the beginning part to get into the document. This is a little jewel of information. When you click the back, because this part is step 2 of 3, the next will generate, when you push next, it's going to generate the document. But if you go back, it takes you back to like the overall layout of the documents. So if I noticed something in that, was like, oh, you know what? I need the property inspection to be down here. Or I need the property inspection to be up here. Or, you know what? I don't need that property inspection addendum. I can delete that. It's going to take it out of the document now. Or I needed to attach a document. Like, oh man, I need to put this in. When you push back, it goes to step 1, and that's where you can add more forms, attach a document. And then you go forward again. It pulls kind of that back up of like just the names, signers of the document. Next, it's going to generate it, kind of open it back up for you. So one thing I highly, highly recommend is getting into Brokerment. Let me try to find the Zoom. Yeah, is just getting into Brokerment. Angela, you have a question?
I did, but it's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just go into Brokerment, pull up a listing in Bright. Even if you just open up the windows, find a listing, pull up the actual document, open up a Brokerment tab for the actual offer that's where you're going to work in. Open up the sample for the offer to help you kind of guide you through. Just playing around with that is going to help you guys, because it's, until you actually actively try to write the offer, it's better to get in and just start tinkering around, familiarizing yourself with all of this before it's like game day and you've never practiced. You've never, thrown a football, and now you're going out on Sunday morning to play football. You know what I mean? We have so many great tools at our disposal, excuse me, with Porterhouse, but really with Brokerman. It's phenomenal tool that we have that makes kind of writing the offer very streamlined, very easy. And all of this too, like you won't really get it until you get into it and play around in it. Even for myself, it, you know, clicking around, I didn't, I mean, like certain things I wasn't sure, but it's the clicking. If you don't click around, if you don't play around and actively experiment with it, you're not going to ever really learn how to use it. So, if there's any questions, anybody got any questions or anything?
Curtis, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask it because you were going through just the writing process. But that utilities form that you use for a disclosure, do you use that often? And is it a
Are you
part,
talking
does
about
it
that?
automatically populate with our disclosures when you pulled it up?
You mean that long one, right? With all the kilowatts and like,
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. That was in their disclosures.
Okay,
So
the
that
reason
was,
I asked is
mhm,
I had an agent ask me if the utilities form was included in the disclosures, and I said no. And
mhm,
because I didn't know what it was. And
right.
then I just saw you pull it up. So that's kind of why I asked.
Yeah, that was in the listing documents. And so when I actually, because I was looking for a house for us to practice on, when I opened up the disclosures and just went through, I was like, okay, disclosures, but I saw that and I was like, oh, I was like, what's that? You know what I mean? So that wasn't anything that I put in. It was just part of the listing sides um, disclosures that I uploaded in. And the other interesting thing is like they weren't filled out, so and this is probably something with Jasmine. I mean, if I was going to make that a part of my disclosures from a listing, take the buyer hat off and put the listing hat on, it was just like actually, I'll go back and it was just like the name, the address. It wasn't nothing really to it. So all that information was blank. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't
Yeah,
even
so I can tell you, I didn't know about that form. And
mhm.
I have a buyer agent who asked me if I included it. And I told him no. He said, no worries, I'll just look up the information. So I think it's something that buyer agents are using to put in the disclosures if we as sellers agents aren't including it. So I'm kind of glad that you introduced it because it's something that we can do to get that information
Yeah.
for our buyers.
Let me see if it should be, but then it wasn't like it filled out because you would think that that would be from the selling side, the listing side, because you would know the kilowatts of the power of the house because that's really what it was about. Like let me find the form.
So Curtis, I know I agree with you, but like I said, I was shocked when that buyer agent asked if I had one and I said it wasn't included. And he said, no
Mhm.
worries, I'll look it up and include it.
Well,
So it's something that you
here we go.
can do from the buyer side if it's not available on the seller side. Cause he said I guess he was going to fill in what he could and
Right.
submit it so that we could fill in the rest, but he was going to, I don't know. I can say I don't remember this form, and I
Right.
think it's something that maybe we can
Yeah, definitely
yeah.
address it
Some of the
because I'm
people in the
not
office said they've seen it too, so
right.
something we can maybe familiarize ourselves with.
Yeah,
Because I
because
wasn't aware.
request for utility usage disclosure. Because even so, this is in their disclosures, and seller provided information, utility supply company reports attached. WBG. So they're even saying that the utility company report attached, it's not attached because they selected the no button.
Well, I
Yeah,
just didn't
that's
want to deviate, but
mhm,
I'm
mhm.
glad I'm glad it was included and you brought it up. It's something we can talk about at a later time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I wasn't sure. That's why I said solar. Because it was just, like why would you need all the kilowatt usage over the period of time? But I'm sure when I opened up to find that other the inspection addendum, I did see solar addendum. So there is something specifically for solar. But yeah, that's something that we'll dive into at another day. But yeah, I'm curious to know what that is as well. Um, but yeah, really, guys, just get in there. You got to tinker around, play around with this stuff. Um, now before you actually are now looking to write the offer, and then adrenaline happens, or you just kind of like now you're worried not what to do, even just the clicking and filling out a name and the date. It's just like anything else with computers. The more you do it, the more you play around with it, the more familiar you become with the technology, the faster that you can get at writing the offer itself. And that's really at the end of the day with the technology with Brokerment. And I think by kind of like really laying all your information out, it very seamless. You can get yourself to writing an offer and being able to send it back over to your buyer to sign off on within 60 minutes, 45 minutes, give or take. You know what I mean? But yeah, if there's no other questions, I guess that's yeah. No other questions. I'm gonna get in bed.
Okay. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you. We appreciate you soldiering through. And you actually did a really great job. I appreciate that. And I learned something new every time you give a training, because the way that I do it may not be the most efficient way. But you learn from other people and them, sharing their training with you. So thank you so much. So we're going to this evening, we are going to be writing writing an offer rather. So you guys make sure that you join us this evening. We'll go through that actual process of writing the offer. So make sure you join us. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to stop our recording. I want to thank you again, Curtis. Even in your 90% stage, you did really well. Thank you so much.